In this lesson we're going to learn to read the rest of the hiragana chart, starting with the N column. Na, ni, nu, ne, and no. No complications in that column, very simple. The H column, ha, hi, fu. That's actually a soft F sound rather than an H on its own. Fu, he, ho. So it's just the fu sound in the middle we need to remember. Let's look at na, ni, nu, ne, no, ha, hi, fu, he, ho. Na, ni. Nani is the Japanese word for what? Remembering we can put the hiragana together once we know the Japanese sounds. Another word we can make out of these 10 hiragana is ha, na. Hana, meaning a flower. Hana, it also means nose. Hana, your nose. Hana, a flower. The M column, ma, mi, mu, me, mo. No complications there, very simple, M plus the vowel. The Y column is interesting, we just have ya, you, and yo. No ye or yet in Japanese at all, just ya, you, yo. Now the R column is a little bit tricky. This is where we have to make a combination of a L, D and an R sound in English. We do this by twisting the tongue or curling the tongue back in the mouth, and then flicking it forward to say ra, ri, ru, re, ro. If you can imagine starting with an R, going to say an L, and then ending with a D. Again that column, ra, ri, ru, re, ro. And then our final column is actually made up with 3 individual sounds. Wa, obviously, W with the A is easy. Then we have this funny one here that used to be a wa sound, but is actually only ever used in grammar, not in a word. We'll learn about that one later on. And finally, the only consonant sound in Japanese that can live on its own, n, just like in nut, n. No vowel required on that one at all. So we can actually end a word in n, or have that sound on its own in the middle of a Japanese word. So looking at the hiragana chart as a whole chart now, we can use any of those symbols to make up words once we know the Japanese word for something. For example, Japan is ni, ho, n. 3 sounds. Ni, ho, n is the Japanese word for Japan. Ki, mo, no, the Japanese traditional dress. Kimono, ki, mo, no. Shi, n, ka, n, se, n is the Japanese word for a bullet train, and of course the Japanese bullet train is famous around the world. Shinkansen. O, ha, yo, u, ohayo is the Japanese word for good morning. Ohayo, if you're speaking with your friends. Ohayo. So we can use the Japanese chart now, knowing all of the different sounds that exist. There are 3 other lessons where you will learn more about the Japanese hiragana, their voice marks, long vowels, double consonants, and what you can do with the ya, you, and yo in an interesting way. Follow up with those lessons so you get a complete mastering of how to use the Japanese script, hiragana.